welcome to myself, Max McGillivray from Beanstalk. Absolute pleasure to be here today with you with our PMA in Southern Africa and Beanstalk Global broadcast. Today majoring on grapes. Leanne, say hello to everyone, please.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next Beanstalk.
Excellent. And we couldn't do this without Leanne and her amazing team over at the PMA in Southern Africa. Just a bit of a housekeeping point. We know that there's issues of load shedding in South Africa. So if you're getting bits of this, but not all of this, or if you lose any of this broadcast halfway through, just to say you can go immediately over to Facebook and look up Beanstalk Global, and it will come out automatically as a record later today, or you'll be able to catch up on the record on YouTube or on the podcast, so you won't miss out. So let's just give a bit of a background, as we always do, to the PMA, because this is very, very important, because it's such an important organization in South Africa and globally. PMA is a key international trade organization representing companies from every segment of the global fresh produce and floral supply chain. PMA helps members grow by providing connections that expand business opportunities and increase sales and consumption. Their mission is to connect, inform, and deliver industry solutions to enhance their members' prosperity. So each month, we are focusing on a major area of South African fresh produce and discussing that all with the country's key experts, so that we can learn and appreciate fantastic South African fresh produce. We're also very proud to announce for the second outing, we've got Hub, who are going to be our partner sponsors for this. And after Leanne and I've had a quick catch up, we're going to have a quick word with Giles from Hub, so you can find out a little bit more about him and his business and why you should be engaging with them. So Leanne, how are things in South Africa, fresh produce wise? We're getting sort of mixed reports about problems with weather and wind. So we don't want to dwell on the negatives, but we've also got to be realistic. What are you seeing, please?
So actually, just before we go into that, I just want to explain what load shedding is for some of the other viewers who are not South African based. So we have a challenge every now and again with our national electricity supply called Eskom. And when they don't have enough resources to run the power in the country, they literally flip the switch for 2 to 4 hours at a time, where we go into complete blackout. So we are currently having rolling blackouts across the country, ongoing until we get enough electricity power back up and running.
Okay, and so does that mean traffic lights go out? Does that mean your freezer goes out?
Absolutely, everything.
Wow. Okay,
everything. So your traffic light goes out, and we have amazing people in the country sponsored by one of our large insurance companies, and the guys come in on their motorbikes and then they start directing the traffic, because if you can imagine, you have an 8-way intersection at peak traffic hour, it gets a little bit crazy on everyone trying to cross the road and get home. But obviously that has an impact as well on our industry, our manufacturing industry, our pack houses, our farmers. You know, you've got lines which have no power, you've got teams standing around waiting for power to come back on to continue packing. So, you know, we do have a challenge, but as I've always said in previous ones, in South Africa, we always make a plan around things.
And the likes of the pack houses.
And
Sorry, Leanne, the likes of the pack houses, will they have external generators to provide that power, or is it just not worth it? They just have to ride with it and wait for the power to come back on?
So it's quite costly to put your generators in, and more companies and offices are now putting their generators in, because we've had this for a number of years. So you would see your bigger organizations are putting in generators to run, and probably some of your smaller farmers or your smallholder farmers, you know, can't afford that sort of infrastructure setup. So they're definitely going to be affected by that.
Okay, and grapes. Why did you and the team at the PMA, why would you like to major on grapes for this month's broadcast, please?
So we are about 3/4 of the way through the grape season in South Africa. Grapes are an incredibly important product in our horticultural basket in South Africa. They are grown across the country, and a couple of our experts on today's call are going to dive into that and give a lot more information. But, you know, while a lot of our listeners are eating their South African grapes at home and tasting the amazing flavor and goodness that comes with them, I think really now is a good time to showcase our industry, what's happening. not just the challenges that we're having quite a lot of weather and rain and winds and port closures and ports delay, which has had an impact on an excellent season, a crop season. But, you know, we also want to paint a larger picture of the industry and talk about a lot of the CSI projects that are taking place, and also the potential growth for the industry going forward and where South Africa can sell their grapes to. So I think it's a good opportune time to bring this to our audience.
Fantastic, and we'll get into a bit more detail on it later. I'm completely biased. I was so well looked after by Clayton from SATI when I did my trip through Africa, and just saw the most amazing grapes and fresh produce. But Leanne, before we do that, let's get Giles in, so we can just have a bit of a word from Giles from our partner sponsor, Kizen Hub. Leanne, do you want to just turn off your video for a minute? I'll call you back in. Giles, hello. Say hello to everyone, please.
Hi, Max. Hi, everybody. Hope you're well.
So Giles, where are you sat today, please?
I'm in sunny Cambridge. Well, very grey Cambridge, but yeah, very jealous of the South African sun right now.
Yeah, Giles and I were just saying in our green room that we can't wait for the spring to come in the UK. It's very delayed. So Giles is just going to give us a bit, not an elevator pitch, but we're really keen for everyone in South Africa and internationally to be aware of Kizen Hub and the work that they do. So not trying to steal any of your thunder, Giles. Kizen Hub we're very proud to have them as a partner sponsor, as we've said, and they support fresh produce businesses in over 7 different countries, managing regional, national, and international supply chain. So Giles, just over to you. Just give us an understanding about Kizen Hub and why fresh produce businesses in South Africa and internationally should engage with you and your colleagues, please.
Yeah, thanks so much, Max. So I'm really fortunate to be on the talk today, because we already work with a number of fresh produce supplies, supplying from a number of different regions around the world. And one of the key regions we're really focused on is South Africa right now. And in particular, we're working with a number of table grape companies who are supplying into the UK market. I'm really interested to speak to other kind of grape providers and especially from South Africa, and hear what they're doing, hear what they're using in terms of their software solutions. Because we've developed over the last 7 years some fantastic solutions to help make your lives a bit easier. So managing the seed, so the planting to your sale cycle, and using our software solutions to help along that journey. So Max, that's what I'm here to discuss today.
Fantastic. So if you'd like to have a look at Giles, Kizen Hub and his colleagues, it's we'll put it on all the links, but if you just have a look at www.kizenhub.com and see how they can benefit you and your business, that'd be fantastic. Giles, thank you very much. Thank you for being involved today, and let's see how this great broadcast goes. Could I, at that point, can I request everyone come in? Can we have Clayton? Can we have Charles? Can we have Heidi? Can we have Candice, please? Thank you, Giles, and we'll see you soon. So everyone, it's great to have you all as our jobbing experts. I think probably the really good thing to do is that you all are very well known within South Africa, but perhaps not internationally. So just going to go around each of you, and if you could just say who you are and who you represent, and then after that we're going to do a deep dive interview with everyone. And I think a number of our experts have got some a slide that they'd like to show to talk through, so we can get an understanding as to what they're seeing in the grape sector. So let's start with the man of the moment, with Clayton. We were just saying how even more handsome he looks with his new glasses from Pick and Pay. It's not Clayton. So Clayton, say who you are and who you represent, please.
Thank you, Max and Leanne. Clayton Swart, South African Table Grape Industry, responsible for communications and market development. Although I must say I miss the markets because I don't get to go to the markets over the past year. But yeah.
Yeah, with the first broadcast that we did that was organised by Leanne, we majored on the wholesale sectors, and I remember you telling me, Clayton, how South Africa as a whole exports 4.5 million tons of produce. I didn't realise that you sell 3.5 million tons of produce within the wholesale sectors, within the wholesale markets. It's that infrastructure was amazing to myself. So next, let's have a word with Heidi. Heidi, could you tell us who you are and who you represent, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Heidi de Villiers. I'm the commercial manager for IFG. It's an American-based breeding program for table grapes and cherries.
Fantastic, thank you, Heidi. And we were saying in the green room that Heidi's used to Teams meetings and not Zoom, so she and I are doing very well holding this together. So, and Candice, over to yourself, please. Who are you and who do you represent?
Hi, I'm Candace Klutte. I'm from BFET, That's the Bureau for Food and Agricultural Policy. And I'm an analyst on the horticultural side, focusing on export-orientated fruits and nuts.
Fantastic. I can't wait to have our conversation, Candice, because we're gonna learn so much from yourself. And Charles, over to yourself, the man with the best backdrop of all of us. Who are you and who do you represent, please?
Hi, my name is Charles Dubois, and I'm the commercial exec for Cape Town. So responsible globally for all the buying and selling across the different produce categories. But I've spent a couple of years in table grapes as well, so hence the table grape background, which I thought was rather fitting, hopefully.
Excellent. And Charles, I've got to put you on the spot. I hope this is okay. I've had a WhatsApp from someone saying, could Charles nominate the variety of grapes in his backdrop? Bit of a tough question. Are you able to do that?
I think Heidi could do that quite well.
Go on, Heidi. No pressure.
It's a block of sweet celebration.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well done. So everyone, let's the order that we're going to go in our interviews. We're going to go with Clayton, with Heidi, with Candice, and with Charles. So could everyone turn off their videos apart from Clayton, and we'll start off with him, and we'll look forward to catching up with everyone in a moment. So Clayton, you and I go back too many years,
yes,
in a very enjoyable manner. I still don't understand why you're a Man United supporter, but we can talk about that at another time. But you're doing very well at the moment in the league, aren't you?
Yeah, but we are more rugby brains and heads in South Africa, so we'll switch to that, Max.
Excellent. Okay, so just for the purpose of the people on the podcast, I just want to give you a bit of background on yourself. So Clayton is the manager, communications and market development manager at the South African table grape industry, SATI, and has held the role for the past 5 seasons. He's a contributor to the SA Fruit Journal and represents the industry at global fruit exhibitions in key markets when we can go there. He holds degrees in journalism and has broad experience as a senior journalist for some of South Africa's leading newspapers and a leading online news portal. He co-authored a book about Nelson Mandela. He lives and works in Cape Town and Johannesburg, Pretoria, whilst working as a communications manager in the business and medical industries before moving to SATI. So tell us a little bit about the South African Table Grape Industry Group. How does that work? How does it organize itself, please?
Yeah, certainly. Do you want me to switch to the presentation now, or should I just?
Please. Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Okay, fantastic. Although the other colleagues will also present a lot more statistics on our industry, I will just highlight briefly where we are in our season, the packing statistics, and largely focusing on the statistics up to week 9. But as many of you will know, SATI represents the South African table grape industry globally, and our aim is obviously to be the representative body for table grape growers, producers in South Africa. Just checking, Max, are you able to see my screen?
Haven't seen it yet, so keep going, or worst case, I can have a go at sharing it at my end. And it's fascinating from a UK European perspective. Yeah, well done. The screen's just coming live now. From a UK and European perspective, we see so many updates from SATI, whether they be good or bad. As Leanne intimated, there's problems at the moment because of weather conditions. But I've always liked the way that SATI is just very open on the communication. So all credit to them. So Clayton, yes, we can see your deck.
Fantastic. No, it's quite important for us to keep the market informed. As we say, we don't want any gaps or people guessing, and it's quite important for us to continue communicating with the market, and we do so in quite close collaboration with producers and the exporters industry as well in South Africa. And we have in season, we have a 2-week, what is called the Joint Table Grape Marketing Forum, where we're not allowed to talk price or set price, but we can certainly reflect back on some of the challenges or issues or whatever else that come up in the season, as well as use that group to help us to get to the crop estimates and to get to the what's happening in the market and to get in the regions. As Charles said, a lot of the exporters especially are on the road in South Africa across the vineyards. So they also are part of our eyes and ears in the vineyards, what's happening, what's growing, if there was rain or strong winds, any potential damages or issues, and then they alert us. And that helps us to put out what we believe the best and most accurately available information at the time. Let me quickly split on. We all know the world famous Table Mountain, and proudly at the South African table grape industry, we can then obviously claim that your grapes truly comes from our table to yours, from our Table Mountain to yours. Let's start off. We at this season have issued about 4 crop estimates, the latest being the crop estimate we issued on the 2nd of March, so earlier this month. And particularly what we're saying, we are quite sensitive to deviations within the season. As you know, the 2 earliest regions, the northern provinces and Orange River, by the time we put together the first estimate, the Olifantsberg and Hex River down here in the Western Cape, it's not at that time known what the potential is on those vines quite yet, because those 3 later regions only start coming out of their winter season a bit later than the northern provinces and Orange River. And then as we progress, you'll see in the second crop estimate, there was quite a bit of rain at the beginning of January. We waited about a week or 2 to get a full assessment on the damage that the rains have caused, and then we adjusted the crop estimate downwards, and that has to obviously take into account the damage of the rain. And surprisingly, then producers packed quite carefully and cautiously, and they managed to then exceed the lowered second crop estimate, and we therefore increased it a bit. And in line with that, the northern provinces, Olifants River and Berg River, had quite optimal harvesting conditions. In other words, to a large extent, if the rains stay away, that is quite a good thing. We also have to keep in mind this year, the season was started about 2 weeks later than last year. Last year started quite a bit earlier. So in this sense, a later season, there's some point where we are not quite sure if the volumes and things will catch up. But as I'll show later in the figures, we seem to have done that. And a lot of people, obviously, always when you put down figures, they want to know, is a record crop coming? Is a record harvest coming? And as you know, our statistics are put down in 4.5 kilogram equivalent cartons. And so for the first time, we see potentially our crop coming in at around 70 million on the high end. And as we'll look through the figures, we think we will come pretty close to that. And I'll explain the reasons for that as we go along. The regions that have already finished, so I'll flip quite quickly through these. Looking at bringing your attention to week 9, the northern provinces, the earliest region, already on 7.8 million cartons. So that is their biggest intake on record. And we've just, as I said in the 4th crop estimate, put that range between 7.87 to 9 million. But as you can see, that's the last few thousand cartons coming in. So we're quite happy with that intake. And please note, these are intakes and not necessarily the exports, but we focus it on the intakes and the potential that the vines have. Secondly, the very large Orange River, which had the huge amounts of rain at the beginning of the year, and they did a bit better than expected. They are about done with the season as well, reaching 18.3 million. So we're quite happy with that they reached quite a decent number. Then flicking on quickly, the smallest region, Olifants River region, reaching the 4 million mark, and also one of the highest totals for them. We're quite happy. This was also the region that were affected quite largely by the droughts, the severe droughts we had over about 3 years or so ago. And we're quite happy that they had very good and optimal weather conditions. And so they will reach that crop estimate quite nicely, and we're very happy for them. Moving on to the Berg River region. This region surprised us all and sundry. As you can see, the estimate was between 16.5 and 17.3 million. And as you can see, between week 8 and 9, which was about 2-3 weeks ago, they had quite a massive intake, which jumped from the 15 to the 17 million. And we are actually getting the statistics for week 10 last week tonight. So it's a pity that the session is just a couple of hours before we'll get the full statistics. And we believe that they will definitely reach way beyond that 17 million mark, reaching that 18 million mark as well. So well done to this region, and we're happy with the conditions and the quality of the grapes, etc. Let's move on to the Hex River region, well known for being almost exclusively table grape focused region. And again, we can see in the figures for the past few weeks, from about week 5, they had bumper weeks in terms of intakes, already reaching the 17 million mark, and definitely set to at least breach that lower level of the crop estimate. We've had some early autumn rain, but as we believe the crimson cultivar, which is the most widely planted cultivar in the region, withstands rain quite well, and there's still about 4 million cartons that they must pack. So we're positive that they will reach the estimate. And other than that, the conditions were quite good as well. So let's flick on quickly to look at it from an overall national level. As you can see there, for up until week 9, so that's 2 weeks ago, we were already on 64 million. Early indications are that we will be reaching the 67 million mark as of week 10. So we'll get a confirmation tonight. And we're quite happy that the intakes are pushing on and will hopefully reach that 70 or close to that 70 million mark in terms of intake. So overall, this once again also illustrates South Africa's diverse climatic regions. As you can see, starting from the very early northern provinces all the way to the Hex River. So if there's rain or other kind of, especially weather, climate-related incident, it can be caught up or at least made up or contributed by another region. In this case, especially the olifants in the Berg that reached a better potential in terms of the intake. So we're quite happy that shows the climatic diversity in South Africa. It's not all our eggs or all our grapes are in one basket, so to speak. So that is fantastic. Let's just quickly look at the exports. As you can see there from the graph chart there, we're looking at week 9 was a bit slow week 8, sorry, was a bit slow due to rain, and then a big uptick in week 9. Also, as you can see, a good split between white seedless, red seedless, as well as red seeded and black seedless. So those volumes increasing quite nicely. Again, if we look at the chart here, the table, you'll see our main markets, EU and UK, once again, the majority or the lion's share of table grapes going towards those 2 markets. In terms of exports, we are around 53 million. So we are starting to see a bit of a catch up in terms of the season being late, but a bit of a catch up in terms of the volumes. And we are quite happy with that. We had a bit of challenges as well, which some of our speakers will also allude to. And that is, we've had some windbound delays in the Cape Town port, which is the major port that exports where the grapes are exported from. We've had some, and when, as you know, the Cape Town southeaster can howl a bit, and that stops the loading tempo quite a bit. There's been some mist, and of course some rain, and coupled with that, a global container shortage has been some of the challenges that Samstranga sees. So that's in a very high level, quick overview of where we are in the season. Thanks.
Clayton, well done. And if I ask you just to summarize the season in a line, and you've seen 4 or 5 seasons now, so you see the ups and downs. How would you summarize the season in a line?
I'd say that it is quite challenging and rough. So maybe perhaps a bit as rough as the stormy seas that you can find around Cape Town.
Yeah,
with COVID and everything else thrown in there.
Yes, but I suppose that's the vagaries of farming internationally, isn't it? It's a bit like the potato sector in the UK. They always say that you normally get 3 good years and then 1 bad year, and so you have to farm on a long-term basis and just know that you'll get oddities like this year. Would that be correct?
Yes, definitely. We say that we farm under the blue roof, and it throws you quite a lot of challenges. But as Leanne also noted, Our farmers are quite hardy. Our value chains, the exporters, everyone involved in the industry are quite flexible and all working together. And that's a big positive for us.
Fantastic. And Clayton, could you just stop your screen sharing? And I just got one question for you before we move on to Heidi. So we've got Nina Patel from India, who I did a broadcast with earlier this week. Hopefully they're not competitors directly with South Africa, but she's got a very interesting question. And if you can answer us, and try not to be too specific, what ratio of white grapes to coloured grapes are you seeing? How many boxes or MT of white grapes left to export or exporting at the moment?
Oh, that's I don't have that offhand, so it's a bit challenging to answer that other than looking at the stats. But let me look at the stats and maybe pop an answer through the Q&A. Or
fantastic, Clayton. Well done. And Heidi, can you come back in, please? So Clayton, Heidi, I presume you know each other, do you?
Through work, yes.
so no going to the pub on a Friday night, unfortunately. Excellent. So Clayton, thank you very much. Blessed to have you on as always. If you could just turn off your video and your sound. So Heidi, I've got a lovely bio of you. I thought this was great. So Heidi de Villiers, you grew up on a wine farm. Oh, wouldn't we love to do that in the UK? And it was love at first sight for yourself. After school, you finished your BSc degree in viticulture at Stellenbosch, and you started your career in the industry and soon realized that your passion lies within the viticulture side. This is, Heidi, this is like reading This Is Your Life. There used to be a TV program in the UK. You've worked at a vine nursery for 3 years and got to know the various new breeding programs and table grape varieties. And you started working at IFG in 2016 and are currently the commercial manager for table grapes for Africa and the Middle East, as well as the international commercial manager for cherries. Crikey, have you got the best job in the world?
I actually do. Apart from Corona making it a bit difficult for us to travel, but other than that, it's amazing.
Excellent. So just give us a bit more of an understanding to IFG, please.
Can I start sharing my screen?
You may. I love it when you guys just tell me what's going to happen, because it's so much. And we were talking earlier, as I said earlier, about green rooms and Zoom and Teams meeting, but Heidi has got it on the button. So I'll disappear, but you fire away.
No, thank you, Max and Leanne, for the opportunity to discuss the changes in variety landscape in South Africa in the last decade. Before I come to IFG, I will be discussing what changed in terms of total acreage, varietal groups, and open versus patented varieties, as well as briefly discuss why we see the change, and then go back to IFG and give you a bit of background on IFG and what we have in the pipeline. So first of all, if we look at the total acreage, and thank you, Sati, for the wonderful statistics that I'll be using for the next couple of slides. You will see that the acreage increased from 2011 until 2020 from just over 13,000 hectares to 20,000 hectares. And the biggest increase was in the years between 2014 and 2018, with about 30% increase. And the main reasons for that was the fact that there's a lot of replacements of other crops like wine grapes, raisins, annual crops like vegetables. And then from 2018 onwards, we see that the hectares remain the same. And that's mainly due to the fact that the new plants is basically to do replants on the older vines. If you look at the varietal categories, on the left hand, you'll see the 2011 pie chart versus the 2020 pie chart. So what is interesting here is to note that there's a significant increase on red seedless from 29% in 2011 until 40% in 2020. There's a slight decrease in green or white seedless from 33% to 27%. And what's interesting for me is to see the massive decrease in seeded varieties from 24% until 3%. The other thing that's also interesting to see here is that the other, which is the varieties that are not under the top 20 planted, increased from 5% to 19%. And that's mainly due to the reason that we have so many different patented varieties that is planted in smaller acreages. If we look at the open varieties versus the patented varieties, and I had a look at the 2014 to 2020 acreage changes, we will see that Crimson is the only open variety that actually increased with 35%. Varieties like Red Globe, Thompson, Flame, and Autumn Royal decreased significantly between 32 to 76%. And I'll briefly discuss the reasons for this a bit later. Now, if you look at the patented varieties, which actually all these varieties that I mentioned here were not under the top 20 planted in 2014, you will see that the acreages increased significantly, and Sweet Celebration, Autumn Crisp, and Sweet Globe is almost 5% of the total acreage. For those of you who do not know these various varieties, I've marked them in the various colors that they are. So Sweet Celebration and Allison are red seedless, Autumn Crisp and Sweet Globe, green or white seedless, and then Sable and Sweet Joy, black seedless. So it's important also to note that there was a significant increase for patented varieties from 2014, from 27% until 52% in 2020. So why do we see these changes in varieties? Well, from a consumer perspective, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a preference to seedless varieties. There's also a consumer demand for better eating quality or eating experience. And from a grower and retailer perspective, the varieties needs to have a better post-harvest than the older open varieties. There are also varieties that had inconsistent yields in the past, and that is negatively impacted the growers. So we need the newer varieties to have consistent yields every year. And then also from a retailer's perspective, they prefer certain varieties above others. So Max, to come back to your question, who is IFG? We are an American-based breeding program that was started by Dr. David Kane in 2001. And his focus was on breeding new table grape varieties with novelty flavors and exceptional quality for the marketplace. IFG's model for breeding is unique in the sense that we move back from, we start with the consumer and end with the breeder side. So we do a lot of taste testing, consumer behavior to determine how and what varieties to choose for the growers to plant. We have two different categories for our varieties. The one being the core varieties, that is mainly our sweet, neutral flavored varieties like Sweet Globe, Sweet Celebration, Sweet Joy. And our focus, or one of our goals, is to have a 52-week supply in all markets. And that's the reason why we are currently in 15 different countries to supply all the various markets for these different varieties. The other group that we have is the novelty group. And these varieties are focused on unique flavors and unique shapes. For some of you have seen Sweet Sapphire, Funny Fingers. And these varieties, I think, is unique in the sense that, it changed the whole perspective. I think one of our key successes was the cotton candy, or as some of you might know, the candy floss, which has taken over the social media, as you can see. We have a couple of new varieties that we've released recently, and they will be on the shelves pretty soon. I have 3 of them here. The first one on the left-hand side is the Julep variety. And this has got a very interesting spicy flavor with a hint of mint. In the middle, we have Bebop, which is a red seedless that has a very unique fruity flavor that is also exceptionally good eating experience. And then lastly, we have Kokomo, and that grape's flavor reminds you of the tropical beach and having a nice cocktail at the end of the day. So that is in short what IFG is. Yes, and our slogan, bringing something special to the table.
Heidi, that's brilliant. When I did my investigations around South Africa, and I was first exposed to the likes of cotton candy, and that first seminal taste is just overwhelming. And having seen my kids and a number of kids, I've done school presentations, enjoyed the likes of cotton candy. It answered my question about why is there so much effort by the likes of yourself, by the likes of your colleagues at IFG in putting so much time and effort into growing these new varieties. But you can absolutely see that my kids, whenever we see cotton candy in the UK, we have to buy as much as possible. I'm so excited about your new varieties coming through, especially the way that you've described them. When do you think we'll see them in the UK? When do you think we'll see them in Europe?
We have some limited plantings at the moment, so we've recently released them. So I would imagine in the next 2 to 3 years, you would be able to see limited volumes of that on the shelves.
Okay, and you are convinced that this cost, this R&D, this time and effort in exploring new varieties is beneficial to the grape sectors?
No, for sure. I mean, especially with everybody moving towards eating more healthy, reducing eating, especially with the children eating sweets. It's better to replace it with something like cotton candy.
Yeah, and well said, because there's recently this week there was a global tomato congress that was run by our friends over at FruitNet Media, Eurofruit Magazine and Fresh Produce Journal. And one of the things that came out from that conference on tomatoes and previous interviews that we've done with tomato experts in the UK is taste. The world consumer is so used to this message that fruit and veg is good for you, and that's a bit passé now. Everyone knows that, but now it's taste and flavor. If we can convince kids and adults that to actually enjoy grapes rather than say having a McDonald's, we will have all won. So well done, all credit to you in investigating deploying this R&D to come up with these new exciting varieties.
No, thank you.
So Heidi, stay there. If you could just turn off your screen share, and Candice, if you could just come in as well, please. And I said earlier to Heidi that she's got the best job in the world. I think just looking at Candice's profile, I think she's also got the best job in the world. It's likewise. So do you two know each other as well?
No, we don't.
Well, welcome to each other. Heidi, if you could turn off your video. And Candice, if you could step in, as you already have done, that's fantastic. So just going to give a bit of a background to Candice. So you are an analyst in the Farm and Production Analytics Division of the Bureau for Food and Agricultural Policy Group, BFAP, and you work primarily on perennial horticultural crops. And your focus includes farm level modeling, impact quantification at farm and industry level, and trend analysis. You're also very busy. Where do you get the time for this? You're also very busy with your PhD in agricultural economics, focusing on land use patterns in South Africa's commercial agriculture. The project is a joint effort between Stellenbosch and Agroscope, the Swiss Confederation Center of Excellence for Agricultural Research. We need more people like you. We've done so many broadcasts about the excitement of individuals, and if it's okay to say women getting involved in fresh food, rather than going into something, don't shoot me, bankers, mundane like banking or accountancy, that you can make such a difference. So why did you get into this mad world of agriculture?
Hi, Max, thanks. So I come from a small stone fruit farm in the Little Karoo in the Western Cape. So I guess it was part of it was at least that was what I grew up knowing. I just thought about it yesterday. My dad's a farmer, my mom's a teacher, and my sister and I, we said we're never going to do what our parents did. And my sister ended up being a teacher and I ended up in agriculture.
Oh, that's hilarious. But it is important though, isn't it? We see so many cases in Africa per se, 10 fastest growing cities in the world in Africa. And there is this view, especially in the likes of West Africa, that if you work on the farm, and I hate this word, that you're but a peasant. And that's why we must all run off into the cities and carve our career there. But I don't know if you're picking this up within your network and within South Africa, within Africa. What we're finding as we hopefully come out of the pandemic is that people want to be associated with businesses and sectors that do good. And what better sector is there to be in but fresh produce, where you and your colleagues are involved in growing some amazing products that everyone is going to be better with. So just tell us a bit more about the Bureau for Food and Agriculture. What do you do within the group, within the organization?
So we are a group that we mostly focus on farm level, and then on an industry level at outlooks, understanding and unpacking changes in the industries, looking at livestock, looking at field crops, and looking at horticulture, where I sit. And a lot of that is to quantify the impact of something, to understand minimum wage is going up. How will that affect the industry, and what changes will come from that?
So you're taking a long-term view, a long-term strategic view, looking to guide the sector to constantly create success.
Yes.
Okay, because it's fascinating. This world of ours of fresh produce, that if you look at the likes of minimum wages globally, if you look at the likes of America, I'll probably get the figures wrong, but the minimum wage is such a big concern within agriculture. And also there is a perception that working in the fields is not as good as working for Starbucks or coffee house, but and also those businesses can pay more to attract those sort of individuals, that then causes problems within agriculture. So can you take a view? Can we look at a crystal ball? Where do you see South Africa agriculture? Where do you see the South African grape sector 2, 3, 4, 5 years out?
I think perhaps I can start sharing my screen.
Yes, please. Well done. God, yeah. We're like professionals, aren't we?
Let me just check here.
Yeah, because this money element is a real worry within the UK, because the minimum wage. I just turned off my video. The minimum wage is a big concern, and so there's a rush in the UK, as there is in the likes of South Africa, on the likes of robotics, to try and not eliminate the workforce, but try and make them more efficient. Over to you.
So I think in South Africa we have a very high unemployment rate, and so agriculture plays an enormous role in employing especially unskilled labor. And I think that is also where the table grape industry comes in with it's one of the highest, it's a labor intensive industry, and as such it's an important industry for government, and also in the rural areas where you find the farms, and to get money into families. So looking at the industry as a whole, we're sitting at just over 21,000 hectares, and considering the different climatic zones, this leads to a fairly outstretched season, running from week 42 more or less to week 22 the next year. And then we have about 643 production units with 271 producers. And what you'll see there is that your larger producers farm multiple units in different regions, which is a form of risk mitigation, and it prolongs their supply season to buyers. If a producer now has a farm in the Orange River region, and he took quite a hit with the rain, but he has some volumes coming from other production units in different regions, on the whole, he should be okay for the year. It's a very technical and capital intensive industry, with few producers that have the appetite and ability to farm table grapes. Clayton has alluded to the bulk of our grapes going to the EU and UK markets, but for South Africa, from a policy perspective and for the market, for the industry as a whole, it's important to get access to the Asian markets, and to literally send our grapes across the world. And because it's such a labor-intensive industry, it is also a priority for government. And so table grapes are included with 14 other commodities in a policy plan process that is currently underway under the umbrella of Agriculture and Agro-Processing Master Plan. So this is the industry, how we see it in its complete form. Looking forward a bit, as Heidi has said, there was a big growth spurt in the hectares, and although we expect the area to plateau over the outlook period, with water perhaps one of the most constraining resources, volume will continue to grow with better cultivars in the ground and more consistent yields. We generate this outlook from a partial equilibrium model, which considers historic and macroeconomic data. And so world volumes, the impact of Peru's volume and Chile will feed into how we see the industry in South Africa growing. Just on a price projection, we see the impact of the exchange rate quite substantially in the table grape industry. Here we have the real and nominal price per carton projection, with real prices in euro terms expected to decline slightly and in rand terms to remain fairly flat. So whilst the exchange rate supports prices, it also affects the input cost. And while in a good year, this will help you royally, but in a bad year, it will count against you. Then we're at a farm level, we consider, we built a prototype farm for each region, considering the cultivar selection, production yields, prices, and production costs for the base year from the data from the industry in that region. And then, so on the screen now, we have a projection for a 24.5 hectare prototype farm in the Hex River region. We see that the sector model outlook and macroeconomic assumptions inform the farm level outlook. And although we at this point see a positive outlook for the industry, it's a healthy industry, it's a growing industry, we do not have certainty about the long-term effects of the pandemic. And then, so even though from a projections perspective, we see positive growth, there are cycles of better and worse performing years, and there's so many uncertainties and unknowns. And like Clayton said, we farm under the blue roof, so there's always the risk of rain or hail, and producers need to make sure that they are sustainable over the long term and that the returns show support for the quantum of the investment. And then lastly, this is maybe just looking at the risks involved. We identify export prices, pack out percentages, and yields as the most volatile variables in production of table grapes. And so in any given year, a bad combination of export prices, packouts, and yields can result in a negative farm income. And but overall, the industry, it seems, would continue to mostly be profitable. There will always be pockets where the elements were against the producer, but on the whole, we see it as a healthy industry where those producers who know what they're doing will continue to prosper.
Well done. I asked you to look in your crystal ball, and you did more than that. You basically predicted the future for us in some respects. So, thank you. So generally, you're it's so difficult. Generally, you're positive about where the sector is going, but with this variabilities of the likes of the weather conditions that we've had this year. Would that be correct?
That's correct. Yes. So I think it's a very well managed industry, and it's a great example for other industries in South Africa, and the way the role players work together in they're doing a phenomenal job to deliver produce of the highest standards to customers across the world.
Well said. And do you think there's learnings that can be had from the South African grape sector, both within South Africa and globally within other areas of fresh produce internationally, or be grapes? Can we learn from the South African grape sector?
I think there's something that Heidi alluded to, was that the change in from seeded to seedless, the change from white to red. I think that is just an example of how the industry is not saying this is what we put in the market and the market has to deal with it. The industry, the players in the industry is actively working every day to take what the market most wants and getting those cultivars into the soil and producing that. And I think that is something that everybody can take a learning from.
Well done. And stay there. Charles, can you come in and just turn on your video? In previous broadcasts, we've talked about the Dutch diamond that's in Holland. They're very well organized in the respect of that they have government help, they have the growers, and they have education, and they have this diamond scenario, as they call it, where there's very good links and very good communication. And in some respects, it feels like you've got that in South Africa as well. Do you think? Charles, it's Candice, thank you very much. If you could turn off your video and your screen share, that'd be fantastic. Charles, you're the man on the ground. We've had these three brilliant experts, but you're actually the man who is involved in selling the product. Have you agreed with the sentiment, the statements that we've had from our previous experts?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's very interesting, and there were some very interesting insights that we can chat a little bit later about maybe what that bodes for the future of the industry. But I think it's a very clear trend, and I think that the trends that have been highlighted will most likely continue.
Brilliant, yeah, and especially some of those figures that we've seen, that with some speed bumps, as we'd say in the UK, a lot along the way, that the future would look to be bright. So let us just give us as we say in the UK on these broadcast series, your rah-rah, so everyone knows a bit more about yourself, Charles, and also for the people listening on the podcast. So you're the commercial executive for Cape Span. Who doesn't know Cape Span on an international basis? And you lead the citrus and the palm fruit and the table grape, as well as the sales teams that are responsible for procurement and sales for Cape Span globally. You're a law graduate from the University of Stellenbosch, and you're very well known in industry circles. A number of people, when I said you were coming on, they couldn't wait to see you. You've an impressive career, gaining considerable experience within the grape sector, and you with the likes of Standard Charter and AriFresh, where you're responsible for both the table grape and citrus portfolios. And whilst your knowledge of farming is extensive, you're very well acquainted with the markets as well. And just for those that don't know Cape Span, we all do, but having said that, we do have a lot of students who dial in who are still learning about the sectors on an international basis. Can you just describe Cape Span to us, please?
I'd love to, because a lot of people actually that I meet tell me, oh, we know all about Cape Span, and there have been a couple of interesting changes. So it's always good to be afforded the opportunity to recap. So Cape Span is born from being the single channel exporting body out of South Africa. It was the deciduous fruit board and the citrus fruit board, citrus auction, traditionally, which then came together after deregulation. The South African industry was deregulated in 1997. And then became a privately owned company. And later years, most of the shares in the privately owned company were bought up by an investment company by the name of Zeda, which is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So today we are a subsidiary of a listed company on the stock exchange. Historically, Cape Span used to be a pure export company. Subsequently, we've also become an importer in Europe. So we've got offices across Europe that deal with importation of grape, citrus, and top fruit, not only from South Africa, but also from South America, India, Egypt, and other countries. So we are on both sides of exporting and importing. And something that a lot of people maybe don't know is that we also are considerable farmers in our own right. So we farm close on 2,000 hectares of table grapes in Namibia and the Orange River, as well as top fruit, as well as citrus across South Africa. So we are a grower as well as exporter, as well as importer. So we're fairly integrated in the value chain.
I was saying to the ladies how they've got the best job in the world, but I think actually on a commercial basis, you've got the best job in the world. Charles, you've got this amazing South African fresh produce and selling it on an international basis. So I believe that you've got some slides that you'd like to run through as well.
I do, and what I'd like to focus on while I just get the slideshow to share is I think we've had fantastic statistics on the industry. Let me know if you can see my slideshow.
Yes. Yeah, we can.
And what I'd like to touch on is just what the other side of the industry maybe little means on ground level to people, and that's the social impact of the industry.
Brilliant.
Is it sharing?
It is. Yep. All sharing.
All right, perfect. So just looking at the high level of what do table grapes mean in South Africa and really agriculture per se. So if you look at the employment share, and I've generously borrowed from both BFAB as well as SATI. So thank you to those involved for creating the statistics. But I think what is important to bear in mind is that agriculture is a significant contributor to employment in South Africa. And if we look at the agri sector, you will see that fruit makes up about 38% of total employment within the sector, closely followed by livestock, vegetables, sugarcane, etc. So the horticulture sector is a very important contributor to employment in South Africa. And I think people that have traveled in South Africa, many of these regions are very remote regions, and a lot of these regions have a dearth of jobs where people would not be employed otherwise if it were not for horticulture. If we then take this one step further and we have a look at within the fruit sector, how labor intensive the different sectors are. Table grapes is by far the most labor intensive sector, followed by citrus, then stone fruit. The only thing that actually outclasses table grapes in South Africa, at least, are berries. But the berry sector is very, very small, whereas the table grape sector is rather significant. So essentially what I'm trying to highlight is that the table grape sector is a big employer of unskilled labor, often in areas where there are very few other jobs. And I think that's really important to bear in mind, apart from just the commercial realities, is that we influence the lives of a lot of people very positively, and I'll touch on that in a moment. So just looking at the where we are, and we don't have to spend too much time looking at the different areas, but you can see it's directly really proportional to production volumes out of the different areas. But we estimate that from SATI statistics, that the industry typically employs about 13,500 people on a full-time basis, and another 65,000 people as seasonal laborers. And that's, of course, anything from the preparation of the grapes right through to harvest, where these people are employed. So they're employed for a significant period of time. A fair amount of these people also move through the different regions. And a lot of these people also then take up employment in comparative industries such as the citrus sector, stone fruit, top fruit, etc. So a lot of people find employment within the sector, which I think is important to realize what impact we have on people. Then just looking at the regions, and Heidi's statistics as well as Clayton's showed it quite nicely, that the change in hectareage. But if we just look at an industry, we had close on 14,000 hectares in 2009. Today we sit over 22,000 hectares, and you can see that there are still new developments in places going in. So we've seen a very significant growth over that period of time, and we estimate that every year we're adding about 3% jobs in addition to the jobs that are out there already. And I think it's important that we ask ourselves how can we grow this industry even further, because as Candace said, for government as well, it's important to see the sector growing, to see the sector thrive, simply because it provides so many employment opportunities to low-skilled people in deep rural regions of South Africa. So I'd like to maybe start. So I'm sitting here with a Cape Span hat on, but also a little bit of an industry hat. And I thought it would be important. I chatted to the guys at SATI as well, and just asked them what are they doing. And one of the things that they're doing in terms of corporate investment and social programs that they have going is, as we saw, there's a huge push towards seedless varieties in the industry. However, seedless varieties are, and in particular new varieties and proprietary varieties, these are often very expensive to get hold of. They're technically challenging, so it's really difficult for emerging growers to be able to break into these breeding programs. What SATI have done is they've contributed 3.2 million rands towards actually buying vines out of these breeding programs and provided these to emerging farmers. And they're budgeting another 2.8 million rands for the coming season. So they're actually making it possible for 9 emerging black previously disadvantaged farmers to be able to compete with the best genetics, which will give them access to the kind of retail programs where they want to be, and not to struggle on with old varieties, old seeded varieties that would really make it very difficult for them to be effective as a business. And that's really replaced about 40 hectares per year into those programs. The other thing in South Africa is that we have a huge drive to make the industry more inclusive, and we would like to have a lot of people that were previously disadvantaged under apartheid legislation to be able to join the industry. One of the big barriers to entry is education. As the other speakers have pointed out, table grapes is technical, it's finicky, it's difficult. And SATI have also sponsored 9 black students with tuition fees, which means that they get a proper tertiary education and will become highly technically skilled, meaning that they can enter the industry on a level footing in future, and they should be able to compete with larger companies that have access to these highly skilled workers. Then SATI is also busy with the regional work of the year competitions, and they've got Agri Got Talent show that they run, which we'll maybe look at a little bit later. So just to carry on and just run you quickly through what Capespan does in terms of our corporate social investment. We have a fund called the Blue Hand Initiative, and Blue Hand Initiative really has 3 core things that it looks at. It looks at social well-being, it looks at healthcare, and it looks at education. And we established this in 2007 already. And the foundation really looks at the regions that we are involved in. So as Capespan, we operate from the northern border of South Africa and the border of Zimbabwe down to the southern tip of the Cape. And we're all the way from Namibia on the west coast right through to east coast tropical regions. And the Blue Hand Foundation was really established to be involved in all of those areas, as well as in the 640 staff that we employ full-time and the 3,600 people that we have that are seasonal laborers. So just to touch on a few of these highlights, we are, in terms of healthcare, we've partnered with, for instance, the Thembalethu Trust in the Sundays River Valley to help with people that are struggling with HIV/AIDS. In 2014, we've joined with the Waitrose Foundation, which has allowed us to put up primary healthcare facilities in the Orange River, which has really improved healthcare for people in those areas. In terms of basic education, we've joined with the Letaba School for Disabled Children in Mpumalanga. In the Western Cape, we've been focusing on early childhood development centers, and the Blue Hand Foundation has been involved on about 23 different farm projects in the different regions to put up farm schools, also once again in fairly regional areas where there's not always that much access to education. And then in terms of skills development, we've run a food tunnel project for a couple of years on many of our farms, where we have permanent as well as seasonal people involved in the project, which really gives them access to great healthy fruit and veg, and in particular veg out of these tunnels on the production areas. In Namibia, as I alluded, we are involved with the Namibian Grape Company, which is part of the Namibian government. So we work very closely with the Namibian Youth Service. And in the Northern Cape, we've developed sport fields and established football and rugby teams, both for full-time labor as well as seasonal labor. And then I think any presentation in this day and age also touches on COVID-19, because we were impacted, and a lot of people in the areas where we operate were severely impacted in COVID-19. A lot of them were unemployed, and our government had to stop a number of feeding schemes because they were worried about too many people in the place. So we got involved with some of our partners, and we've delivered a lot of fruit to these people. Our Nova Fruit Top Fruit Packhouse in Paul donated apples that we managed to distribute. So we've also tried to help in the communities where we've been involved on that front. And I think that's just maybe a quick highlight. I'm conscious of the fact that we're running out of time on what Capespan tries to do in terms of corporate social investment. And I'd just like to highlight that I think Capespan is maybe a good example, but by no means the only example of CSI in the industry.
Sure, fantastic. That's an absolute masterclass from the producer aspect of it. I'm going to ask you a bit of a loaded question, and I know what I believe is the answer. Do you think if we could promote more of the good work that the likes of Capespan and the other growers in South Africa do, that it would be beneficial to South African fresh produce? Would you sell more fresh produce? What do you think?
My gut instinct would probably be yes, but the reality is we do it for the cause in any case. So for us, it's not, and that's why a lot of people probably haven't heard of the Capespan Blue Hand Foundation, which has been running since 2007, because it happens under the radar. And I think in most rural areas in South Africa, farmers are very involved with the local communities, and we've got massive challenges in terms of service delivery from government. And often farmers have really stepped into that. But yes, it probably would help us to shout a little bit more about the good work that we're doing.
I totally get where you want to be. That you're let's call it a modest organisation, and we've all seen enough organisations that show off their good causes, but that they're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're doing good, and the product that you're growing is doing us all good, and I just think you should be rewarded with that. And there's this standard stat from Europe that 6 out of 10 kids don't know where fresh produce comes from, and if they could see the benefit of enjoying your amazing fresh produce and the good that you're also doing, it's just going to join up that chain a little bit more. So no, all credit to you, and if there's anything that we could do to help promote in a way that you're happy with that good work that you're doing within Capespan, please just say. And everyone, if you could come back in, and we're just whilst everyone's coming back in, Charles, just going to ask this question that Gary Bradbury very kindly put across. One challenge for all fresh produce exporters and their producers is the variation in the pesticide use policies among the various retail customers in importing countries. It's become a serious problem, as we all know. How can the exporters possibly cope with this? Charles, what do you think? What's the answer to that one?
It's very tricky because I think, to be frank, in table grapes it's less of an issue than in things like citrus, where we've got a much higher pest pressure and disease pressure. So in citrus we really struggle with it. In table grapes it's relatively straightforward. I think the reality is that a lot of customers and a lot of I mean actually consumers, but also customers that buy fruit, don't necessarily realize that if we are cutting down the pesticides used, we are increasing the risk to growers quite significantly. And it's one thing to say, I want growers only to use 50% of recommended pesticide levels. But what you're ignoring is you're building up, first of all, systemic resistance for those pesticides, but also the grower is sacrificing, or he's risking 100% of his crop, because he's not protecting it optimally. And I think the reality is that the market should actually pay for that. If you want a grower to take that kind of risk, it's almost like in organics. The growers know the risk they face and they take that risk, but they expect to get rewarded for it.
Yeah, well said. And everyone, we're slightly running out of time. I've put more rand in the meter this end so that we can stay live. But it'd be good now to summarise from everyone. If it's okay, we'll do it in the order of the interviews. And Leanne, if you wanted to play the video at the end, sorry everyone, we're just going to do an administrative point. We can either play it or I can put it on the recording. So Leanne, your call when we get to that point. Clayton, I found this fascinating as ever. I learned so much with these PMA broadcasts. well, you probably heard me say this before with other broadcasts that you kind of been involved with. We want people to go away with 5 takeaways from what they've learned from this broadcast today. Not saying you've got to give us 5, Clayton, but what would you like people to take away from this broadcast today, please?
That is, look out on your shopping shelves for the South African flag and buy South African produce. That's number 1, 2, and 3.
Excellent. And your view of where the grape sector is going. You're having a bit of a turbulent year this year with container issues, port issues, but are you positive about where the sector is going over the next 3, 4, 5 years?
Yes, indeed we are. If you'd heard from the other experts, as you say, it was not only just reinvesting in new cultivars, but it comes at huge expense. And we're talking tens of millions of rands to change a cultivar with a lifespan of 15, 20 years to make money. And if new cultivars or new tastes and desires are flavor of the month from consumers, 1 year in, 1 year out, that is a big risk. So producers and the exporters do take a lot of risk, and they do put a lot of money in the ground to ensure water quality and all the other aspects that takes money. So so the investments are quite huge. It's quite capital intensive, and the markets should work with us to reward that intensive effort. And then obviously issues like shipping and the timing and all of those things, getting that right. So all these factors need to be in sync, and we need to continue to talk, not only being organized within our country, but globally as well, with the importers, the freight forwarders, the clearance houses, and of course marketers like yourself, Max. Those are all critical role players.
Well said. Class act as ever, Clayton. Heidi, what's the takeaways that you'd like people to learn from yourself and your fantastic presentation, and everyone else, please?
I think the only constant in breeding programs or in the changes in varieties is that it will change year on year. What we see now is that due to the fact that there were so many red seedless planted the past couple of years, there's a shortage of white seedless, and we see that on new potential orders for the coming years. So the only constant is that it will change year on year, and we need to be on top of everything.
Okay, but generally you're positive as to where the South African grape sector is heading?
No, for sure. I think a couple of the other presentators also highlighted that, is that agriculture is an important part of income, of job creation. So it's important for South Africa specifically as well.
Yeah, well said. Candice, I'm still toying as to who out of the two of you, Heidi or yourself, who's got the best job. I think you both, we're just going to have, the poll's going to say you both got the best jobs in the world. So Candice, what's your takeaway? What would you like people to take away from your presentation and that of the other panelists, please?
I think, like Clayton said, if they keep buying South African grapes, there's going to be not only it's going to be a thriving industry in South Africa, but it's changing the lives of laborers and their families every day.
Well, wow, well said. And Charles, just to wrap up with yourself, do you think there's an appetite for European, UK, Asian retailers to buy more grapes from South Africa?
Yeah, I do think so, and I think it really has to do with the fact that we've managed to grow the acreage, and that's for a good reason. It's because I think we deliver a world-class product. I think we are well distributed through the different regions, and so we've got a nice long season. And if we talk about Southern Africa, including Namibia, it becomes even longer. And I think the varietal breeding programs that have brought good fruit and good new varieties into South Africa as well really makes it. I mean, if I think about the industry 10, 15 years ago, which was seeded grapes in a 4.5 kilo in polycoats, compared to what we're doing today with fantastic seedless varieties with fantastic flavor profiles, I think that's really moved ahead, and I think that's driving a lot of growth in our industry.
Okay, so you're positive that the industry is facing in the right direction?
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. Leanne, over to you. Again, you and your amazing team at the PMA in Southern Africa have presented some fantastic experts. The feedback that we're getting from these broadcasts, both from a South Africa but an international basis, is great, and it's hardly surprising with the mixture that we've got of these experts. Case in point today, what's your summary? What would you like people to take away from this broadcast today?
I just think again, it was lovely to have Cape Span talk about the corporate social initiatives that our industry run. We do keep it a little bit quiet for many reasons. No one does it because they want to grow sales. That's not the first driving factor, but it's because we are a country and a community, and we look after each other. And I also just want to share that today, the Agri Fund got launched by the IDC in South Africa, where they've released R1 billion, literally to grow different industries and part of the horticulture industry. So Charles, I'm really hoping that some of that money funnels in to some of the smallholder farmers or our small emerging farmers in South Africa in the grape industry. There's a lot of support that's needed there. So I think the outlook is very positive, Max.
Fantastic. So everyone, thank you very much for participating in today. Thank you very much to Kizen Hub and to Giles. And we look forward to next month's broadcast with further details to follow. We're really gaining momentum on these. You can watch on YouTube. You can listen to the podcast if you've had any load shedding problems. Leanne, are we good to say goodbye, or would you like to?
We're going to go with the Jerusalem video. So Charles is going to get that up and running. For those of you who can, please stay on. It's incredibly uplifting. Excellent. It's fun. Get on your dancing shoes and see some of the amazing work they're doing across some of their projects.
Excellent. If everyone else could turn off the videos and the sound, let's go for it.
Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikhaya ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikayalami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami
Forward to our next outing next month, Leanne.
Yeah, and Max, I just thought we might do a call out to our companies to say, send us your Jerusalem video. Let's check it out.
Leanne, you ought to be in marketing. So let's just say that again. If you've got videos, if you've got pictures, if you've got any stories that you want to promote via Leanne through the PMA, via Beanstalk to our collective global industry network, send them over. So let's have your pictures, let's have your videos, let's have your stories so that we can show off about the global world of fresh produce. Everyone, thank you very, very much for today, and keep safe. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Max. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.